Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is Jeff C. I'm here with my good friend Camille, and we're going to discuss the sustainment goals, or sustainable goals, development goals, I should say, of the New World Order today, taking a look at. Oh, here we go. There we go. That's me. Shut up, you. Anyways, yeah, welcome to the show. We're going to take a look at this. It's very important. I've covered this so many times over the years, the United Nations and all their documents and their big major plans for the entire world. So this affects everyone. This is the big trick that they're playing on everyone, I would say, to a certain extent. Most people are completely oblivious to what is going on, that all elements of society and civilization, all countries are going to have to abide by what the United Nations are designing. And we already are, most of our countries are already signed on to these agreements in many ways, and it gets more apparent every year. And I think that at this point in time, even though I would say the average person, if you were to ask them, like probably the average person has heard of the New World Order, and probably the average person knows of some of the conspiracies that are out there, but I would wager that 99% of people that you would ask, if you were to go in public and be like Camille and go up to people in the street and say, do you know what Agenda 2030 is? They would probably have no idea, nor Agenda 21. And yet we are all, 100% kind of in the control of this plan. We are all, this plan is being laid out all around us. And so it's very important for people to understand this. Now, if you buy into the whole notion that we have a runaway greenhouse gas effect and the planet is utterly doomed, then you can see why people would sign on to something like this, why countries would sign on to something like this. Because if you are under that impression, if you are convinced that the planet is doomed unless we take serious action, then you're likely to say, okay, we have to do whatever is necessary. And this is kind of the situation that I think a lot of people that have fallen under this bankster spell, this is the whole reason, right? And so if we look and we see around us, for instance, like everyone knows who Greta Thunberg is. I mean, you'd have to be literally living under a rock not to know who Greta Thunberg is. She's probably amongst the most recognizable people on the planet in this day and age. And that is just she's just a harbinger of what's to come. I mean, it goes to show you, I think 2019 in many ways was the big coming out for this climate change thing. It was like, we're going to go on the offensive in the biggest of ways. We are just going to hit people here, there, and everywhere. It doesn't matter what you tune into. You'd be watching television, watching National Geographic, you'd be watching sports, right? You could be attending FIFA World Cups. Wherever you go, you're going to get hit with this sustainable development agenda now. And it has now risen to the top. And just out of my recent memory covering the federal election, this election, if you will, up here in Canada, you would go back a decade, 10, 15 years, and the environment would be one of the last categories discussed amongst the leaders. In this federal election, it was number one with a bullet, and it was almost half of the whole discussion. And everything else that came after kept referencing sustainable development goals. And in many ways, the 6 rainbow-colored parties of Canada's political system were all trying to outdo each other with how they were going to be the best at implementing, the sustainable development goals. It was very disturbing because, you go back a decade, you go back 10, 20 years, and it would be the opposite, where, you have massive skepticism and parties would be, would be reluctant to actually engage in it because, of course, they're worried about the political fallout of aligning themselves with these types of very skeptical, well, at least at that point in time. So there's been a massive transformation. And this is really when we talk about Agenda 2030, Agenda 21. Now it's all Agenda 21. So I want to make this clear so people understand the difference between Agenda 2030 and Agenda 21. Agenda 2030 falls inside of Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is the agenda for the 21st century. So Agenda 2030 is merely the agendas that they wish to accomplish by the year 2030. So it's very important. So it's the same thing, really, right? Agenda 21 is the big granddaddy of them all. And Agenda 2030 is one of its offspring kind of thing, right? So what we're going to be looking at today mostly is Agenda 2030, but it's all the same beast, basically. And what we're trying to illustrate here is how it will infiltrate every level of society. And we talk about this, it's very disturbing to think about it, because many of us, I think, realize that, personal sovereignty and having more independence equals more freedom, right? That's a no-brainer. I don't really have to explain that, right? The more that you rely upon the government, the less free you are. They are trying to create an absolute Orwellian nanny state, which everyone is always dependent upon the government, and that the government is involved in every element of civilization. And the danger about this, what's scary about this is that they're using this fear porn, if you will. I know fear porn is a term that's used within the truther realm a lot to dismiss a lot of the more outrageous sort of conspiracies that go viral and stuff, saying, oh, it's just fear porn. But really, you could say climate change, which they've changed, right? They used to call it global warming. They don't call it global warming for a reason anymore, because they know that people don't buy that rhetoric. That name, that brand has soured, so they have changed it to climate change, CC33. Of course, it's always coded. And so they are using this to program the masses into compliance with what is to come. Now, people don't realize this, but every day your governments, whether you're in Europe, you're in Latin America, you're in North America, right? You're in Asia, your governments are giving up they're giving up more and more of their control to these global systems. Now, how much of this is, shenanigans behind the scenes, envelopes on the table, who knows, really? But we have people being established in all these positions throughout governments. Jacinda Ardern is a great example here in Montreal. Valerie Plante. Now, Montreal, I showed in the video yesterday, just passed this Orwellian sort of legislation that forces every dog and cat owner to not only get their dogs and cats microchipped, but also to get them spayed and neutered, to get them fixed, sterilized, basically. And this is just an example of this is all coming from, in my opinion, it's all coming from the globalists themselves. This is all part of their initiatives. And you just see how every element of our society is going to be affected by this. You might be someone that's living off the grid, for instance, and you might, like to use your own particular type of soil. Well, you might have the New World Order basically coming in and saying, you can only use this now. We have passed legislation. We have made this forbidden. You can't grow this, that, and that. You have to use these seeds. You have to do this. This is where it's going. Of course, education systems, right? Where they're going to force every child to be part of a global education. Of course, it's about, leaving no child behind kind of thing, and that we want to make sure that everyone gets the education. But really, it's about we're going to deconstruct the family and take control of children and program them into the New World Order. That's my opinion of how it's all rolling out. So we have to be very concerned. I think most of the people that should be the most concerned are the ones that cherish freedom the most. If you're someone that's living more or less off the grid, for instance, if you're homeschooling, if you're providing a lot of your own food, if you like hunting, for instance, right? Which these are all things that are directly in the crosshairs of this New World Order. There's really no end to what they will involve themselves in, because when we go through this, you'll see it's every element of society. And so this is very dangerous. Now, looking up on the screen here, you see the symbolism here with the hourglass. Now, time's up, tick-tock. You see this everywhere these days. How much of this is a part of their sort of learned helplessness, or their fear porn that they're using to program people is up to debate. But it is a common symbol that you'll see that they're using against humanity. And again, with the Extinction Rebellion, again, with the as above, so below, with the same symbolism that you would see here with the hourglass, very similar. You've got all this doomsday clock, for instance, which is, to me, I hate the doomsday clock. I just want to go and beat those guys up, because, they keep moving the clock closer to midnight, saying, well, we're almost there. We're going to, doom is here, right? And that's all wrapped around the whole cloak of this global warming, climate change garbage that they're trying to program everyone into. So with that all being said, I want to bring in my lovely guest here, Camille, who has been doing a lot of work into this. Camille, how are you doing? Happy New Year, by the way.
Hi, Happy New Year, everyone. Hi, Jeff. I'm
So,
doing fine.
Yeah, where should we start with this? What do you want to? Do you want to?
First, you were talking about Greta, and I know that something just came through to my phone. Her dad's worried about her, so hopefully they don't turn Greta into something else, like some other everybody was too mean to her sort of thing. So anyway, but yeah. At the beginning, you were saying on this, the future is now thing. I don't remember how I found this, but I found it the other day. I think it said it came out in September of 2019. So, but you were just saying about the No Child Left Behind, and they're talking about leaving no one behind right in the preface there. And it's like, I saw a book once that was, I Want to Be Left Behind. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It is scary, because it's guised as something, they care so much, and think about the children, and they don't want, you want to, equality. But you could say equality. You could say communism.
Oh yeah, for so many people to come up, so many people have to come down, for that equality.
Yeah, and really, is it really just equality for all of us?
No.
But like, say the herd has the equality,
but
not for the people that run the show, right? They'll have their own little sort of rules which they abide by. But yeah, this and the symbolism here with this hourglass, which is very telling sort of thing. And then you see up here, you've got a woman, it looks like, with her arms spread out, and oh joy,
the world is hers now.
Yeah, the world is perfect. Yeah. Right. It looks like this might be a kid who's kind of looks like he's down or something. I don't know.
Or an old man.
Yeah. And then down here on the bottom here, you've got the man sitting by himself.
Dead world.
Yeah, and it looks like a dead world. And yet there's some animals, and it's I don't know. And then, of course, you get the symbolism. Now, anybody that's paying attention will notice that this was the symbol of, and I should bring that up, in fact, just to hammer it home. I'll put Greta yacht here, and we'll bring up Greta's yacht to just show you there. It's a good example. A race we must win, climate action now. You see the clear symbols here, right? And of course, this is the symbol of Agenda 2030. There's 17 sustainable development goals here, each one with its own rainbow color. So that's why it's so important for people to pay attention. Now, even the most programmed person would have to be, if they had just a modicum of critical thought, would have to be very skeptical of Greta, or at least a little bit skeptical of Greta, because you just have to. I don't. It's inconceivable to me how anybody could just think that that's a completely authentic character.
Well, if they're terrified, they're probably not thinking very clearly. Yeah.
That's true. I think I give humanity too much credit, but I mean, like they've managed to program people so much that the average person's just going to cheer it on. And again, like let's just take for a second, if we were to take the point of view that some of these scumbags might push and they might say, okay, yes, Greta's a fraud, whatever. She's not authentic. We'll give you that. But who cares? Right? It's the message that she's bringing you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would say that. They would say, well, yeah, but it doesn't really matter because she's trying to save the world, sort of thing. I say it matters all the more because this is the biggest problem that we face, folks, is that the moment that we allow people to manipulate us, then it never stops. And then
Yeah.
you'll never, so if they're so confident that all of this is going down, then why do they have to go through all these shenanigans and charades to try to convince everyone else? And
Well,
to me, it's total deception,
yeah.
right?
Lots of lying.
Yeah, so
Lots of lying.
all right, so this is the future is now the science for achieving sustainable development. So you're saying this document just came out this year, right?
Yeah, they said September, I think. It's the first quadrennial report by, I'm doing air quotes, an independent group of scientists for the Agenda 2030.
Mm-hmm. And
So
they give a list here of the scientists, and they have the people from all of they like to do this because they want globalism, of
diversity.
course, diversity.
It's
So you
strength.
yeah, you got Switzerland, Indonesia, Cameroon, Ghana, Finland, U.S., Mexico, Korea, Austria, France, Denmark, Jordan, Jamaica, Lithuania, Belgium. Of course, the cover design and graphics are by Camillo J. Solomon. Which might explain the symbolism. Of course, hey, you know what? Let's just show folks that for a second, which is important for people to see. We'll just put Extinction Rebellion.
Those guys are great.
Yeah, it's important for people to pay attention to the symbol of the Extinction Rebellion. So that looks very similar. In fact, it's an hourglass kind of symbolism, right?
And if you look at the animal rebellion people, their offshoot, it's got a animal skull, and they put that on it, like the cow skull.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh no, well, and down where the little horns are.
Yeah, that's just wow. Yeah, again, they're right there. Yeah. So that's very important for people to notice here. We'll just go back and show you that, of course, up here, right? As above, so below, right? Right there, and then the Extinction Rebellion. So it's the same symbolism that they use over and over again.
It's just a coincidence.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, sure.
Which this is all into Hermeticism, right? This is again, it is Freemasonic. It is Talmudic sort of symbolism about as above, so below. So and Saturn sort of symbolism with the X, of course, as well. You'll see these symbols repeat themselves over and over again. You'll see them in your video games, in your movies. You'll see them everywhere. So they're very important. But we won't get hung up on that. I just wanted to make that clear for folks before we delve.
I went through this document. I didn't read everything, but I was scanning through. So I have page numbers written down. They're going off of the PDF page numbers, not the numbers on the thing. So you know.
Where would you like to begin?
Well, on page 14, again, the
Okay.
PDF page, not the document page. It's just talking about that leaving no one behind thing and this science and policy interface, so that the science is real.
Would this be it here?
Yeah, that's the forward. There's a forward, there's a preface, there's another thing. Everybody has something to say. That was it right there. You passed him.
Oh,
prologue. Yeah, not her.
This one.
Yeah, that one. So it's really nothing there other than what I just said, how they don't want to leave anyone behind, unfortunately. And yeah, science and policy working
Okay,
together
so I'll read
to
this
change the
quickly
world.
here. In 2015, United Nations member states committed to the ambitious but achievable 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, charting a new path of balance for humanity and the planet. Important steps have been taken and innovative partnerships are taking shape. But if we are to achieve all of the Sustainable Development Goals, more needs to be done. This Sustainable Development Report is a poignant reminder of risks we face if we do not act. See, fear,
Yeah.
right? Always
Hurry.
using fear. Risks we face if we do not act swiftly and with purpose. The report makes clear that we are at risk of irreversibly degrading the natural systems that sustain us and further points out where we are off track and, of course, leaving no one behind.
Yeah.
More ambitious, more transformative, and more integrated responses are urgently needed. This evidence-based and action-oriented report further highlights the indispensable role of science for ending hunger, tackling climate change, reducing inequality, and accelerating the process of sustainable development goals. The Global Sustainable Development Report complements the Secretary General's annual Sustainable Development Goals Progress Report. It helps bridge the gap between knowledge and policy by synthesizing analysis and identifying evidence-driven pathways to transformation. The report rightly acknowledges that strengthening the science policy interface and advancing the knowledge base to inform action require greater support and resources for scientific institutions. So
I
sorry, go ahead.
I vote we skip on past a whole lot of stuff now. Go to page 27.
Yeah,
There's lots of. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just before we do, I just wanted to highlight. That's why I highlighted here. If you can see on my screen, this evidence-based and action-oriented report further highlights the indispensable role of science.
Yay!
For ending hunger, tackling climate change, reducing inequality, and accelerating progress across the sustainment development goals. Now, this is important to point out, right? Science is real. You know, the rainbow objectives. Now, you think about the Extinction Rebellion, as we showed you here, of course, the Sustainable Development Goals, the symbol on Greta's sailboat, Greta's yacht here. Sustainable Development Goals, which we'll show you here, right? All your sustainable development goals. This is every element of civilization, pretty much. And and I've gone through this document many times, discussing this in previous shows below. But it's every element: no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work growth and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and then partnerships for the goals, with all the symbolism, which is very telling to go with it. You have to realize that it's every element of civilization that they're talking about, controlling every element. So you're going to have a globalized system that the countries are only going to exist in in name alone, more or less. It's already shifting to this point. United States, one of the big ones, the last massive hurdles. But countries like Canada, Sweden, Norway, Australia, Japan, in many ways are just boroughs of this new world order at this point in time. Every day we give up more sovereignty to the central bankers to control our world, all under the guise of sustainable development. It's the biggest thing. And this is what I want people to understand. I think most people that listen to the show already know this very well, but I mean, they want to scare the bejesus out of you and make you think that unless we all give into a globalized system, that the planet is doomed. All right. Very important to do this. So I want to show that. I want to show you the colors and the symbolism because you see this everywhere. And then I want to put in something here just to emphasize this. Science is real. Again, it's another really nonsensical sort of statement, like all the statements that they use in this rainbow type of programming. But this is all coming from the United Nations. This is all coming from the banksters themselves. The Human Rights Commission. They put this stuff out all the time. Like the Human Rights Commission will put out every day these memes. Women's rights are human rights. Women's rights are human rights. Women's rights are human rights. And they'll just repeat it over and over again. It's just like banging you, whacking it in your head because they want you to be programmed into a hive mindset. And this is the type of programming that is used on the masses. They want you to embrace science as the solution to everything. But it's not your science, it's their science, right? It's very important for people to understand this. So this is why when they say evidence-based and action-oriented report, they say the indispensable role of science for ending hunger, tackling climate change, reducing inequality, and accelerating progress for sustainable development goals. Again, what we're facing is a world where freedom doesn't exist, where the concept of freedom is pretty much wiped out. They're already happening in many ways with the surveillance state, the facial recognition, that they're putting in everywhere. So we're facing a world where nobody is going to be free. They'll convince you that you are free, but nobody will be truly free. And so anybody that has a notion of escaping this tyranny needs to pay attention because all the countries of the United Nations are signing on to these agreements. So anyways, we're going to skip ahead. What did you want to go to now?
Page 27.
Page
sorry,
here.
I've got all these page numbers written down. It's like 300 some pages long. So sorry for jumping.
No. I think there's a quicker way of doing this. So I want to just skip ahead. I'm going to put 27th. Yeah.
Oh, my word. Really? That would have saved
Did I just teach
so
you
much
some
time. I was scrolling. Oh, my word. Yeah. So, okay. Really, this is the part where they're talking about the decarbonization. And I had shared a link with you a little bit ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to show about a minute.
Absolutely.
People might have caught on by now that I've kind of not obsessed, but I've got this thing for Michael Crichton and his books, especially State of Fear. And that's a great book. And anybody that does have family members that are convinced that Greta's telling the truth, they should read that book. Because I have 2 family members that are very stuck in their ways, not pleasant people, but this totally changed their mind. They said that they don't believe that bullshit anymore. So
can you give a preface of
yeah.
what this is?
So Crichton, he's dead, but he was talking at the Independent Institute. And after he speaks here, that all these scientists stand up and talk about how he's their hero because he's there talking about State of Fear and stuff that he covers in the book too. But what he's about to talk about here is the decarbonization. So, and where he gets his information is the Rockefeller Institute, but it's just about a minute long. I'm not a scientist, but it seems like makes sense. I don't know.
All right, let's play this. Okay, so I'm going to put up the volume here.
Ehrlich was thus urging people to do what they had already been doing for some time, and it's not clear to me whether he knew that or not, but certainly when he said, "The battle to feed all of humanity is over. At this late date, nothing can prevent a substantial increase in the world death rate," then he's simply wrong. You can see the death rate here.
I think I was a few seconds behind. Sorry.
Where do you want me to go then?
Go forward a few seconds. Or to the end of when that graph is being shown.
All right. Let's see.
Sorry. I'm going to blame YouTube.
Hang on.
You can see nothing, it never went up.
All right, here.
Ehrlich's message, crying out in desperation to urge what's already happening, is not unique. We have a contemporary example of the call by politicians and activists to end our dependence on fossil fuels and move to a carbon neutral lifestyle. Their call to action is, however, a little bit late. According to Jesse Ausubel, the Rockefeller Institute, the industrialized nations have been decarbonizing their energy sources for 150 years, meaning that we are moving away from carbon toward hydrogen. In other words, the ratio of carbon to hydrogen decreases as you go from wood and hay, which is 1 to 1, to coal, to oil, and finally to natural gas, where it's 1 to 4. Here's an illustration from one of Ausubel's articles. The blue atoms are hydrogen, and the dirty brown ones are carbon. And you can see as we go from coal to oil to gas, natural gas, if there's still any for sale, we are increasing the proportion of hydrogen to carbon.
You could probably stop it there.
Ausubel expects this.
And as he said, that if you can still find any, I just saw something they're talking about new homes built, I think, California, that they're not allowed to be built ready for natural gas. Anyway.
They're not allowed to be built?
Yeah, I just saw, I don't have that ready, but I just saw an article talking about that they're
interesting.
Not, yeah.
And yeah, so again, he's saying that based on Rothschild
Rockefeller
or Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And it goes to show you too, to understand how long that they've been, planning this whole thing out. It goes back so far, probably prior to the League of Nations. So we're talking early 1900s, maybe even before that. And when we talked about Greta Thunberg as well, with Greta Thunberg, one of the interesting things that was uncovered was her I don't know if it's her ancestor. It's like her great grandfather or whatever. Ironically, folks, just happened to be, just happened to be the guy that first developed the methods of collecting carbon data, like 100 years ago. Right now, again, I want people to understand this, that when it comes to the elites, the globalists themselves, the banksters, however you want to define them, they've always been obsessed with overpopulation, right? This goes back hundreds of years. They've wanted to depopulate people. And so it's very important that people understand that this is not a new thing. It's overpopulation at the turn of the 20th century, so 1900. One of the biggest stories, and I remember researching this years ago, that was put out was how the planet was overpopulated and how dangerous that the Industrial Revolution had led to massive amounts of population. There was only like 1.5 billion people or less at that point in time. So this whole overpopulation theme that you see everywhere is nothing new.
Yeah, that Crichton talk there, he kind of blows that out of the water. Yeah, all their predictions and whatnot, and how they make things for us, then they make things bad for us, then they make things good for us, just to keep us all scrambled up and scared, because how easily manipulated we are.
Yeah, scared. So like he's saying, basically, if we really wanted to take this on, we should be forcing people to build homes that are using natural gas and thus burning much less carbon, right?
Yeah, better than a fireplace.
Yeah. But and like, yeah,
if this is a concern.
Yeah, I am not against, I always have to say this, like, I don't believe in pollution, and I don't want to be in a world that's, and again, if you go back to the early 20th century, pollution was really bad. Like, cities were quite disgusting in many ways. There was crap everywhere, people just dumped even just their feces on street corners and stuff like that. You didn't have the advanced sort of sewage systems that you have today. A lot of the rivers around major cities were very, very polluted. You wouldn't be able to swim or drink from them. And we've changed a lot of things. And I'm not against, sensible sort of regulations to cut down on emissions. But again, what we're talking about here is for them to use the guise of pollution. And again, with how disingenuous they are when it comes to using animals. And I try to make this point all the time, and I did it last night on the podcast, where it's like they'll take an animal, and in that case, it was the koala bear, right? And it was like allegedly, according to the story, a koala bear was escaping the was dying of thirst because of the wildfires in Australia, which of course are caused by the global warming, and begged a couple cyclists to stop and give it water. And everybody watches that. And then, koala bears are so cute, and people are easily programmed by animals, by using animals to push these agendas, because we're emotionally compromised. So I don't know if I bring that up for a second here. Did you see that, by the way?
Is it the one where the lady takes her shirt off and like grabs the koala, or was that a burning koala? Because I saw that a little while ago.
See, I put koala bear thirsty,
Yeah.
and I put koala bear thirsty. It comes up, but this is an example of how.
This is a different one than what I saw.
Yeah, it's probably
another koala was saved.
Yeah. This is used all the time. Thirsty koala drinks water. Thirsty koala displaced by Australia's bushfires. Okay, we'll just open this one for a second here. Right? What a truly wonderful experience here. But you see the headline: thirsty koala displaced by Australia's bushfires rushes to cyclists for a drink of water. Right? And any, empathetic human being that, we all love animals. I
know, I'm going, oh.
Yeah, it's so cute, right? And the poor thing's so thirsty, but I mean, come on, seriously? Right? It's as disingenuous as this is the face of climate change, or this is the face of global warming. They show you the sick polar bear. It's like, wait, how do you know that's anything near? And why would people be cycling near the wildfires and like all these different things? They could have just taken that out of a cage.
Who goes for a bike ride near wildfires?
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying.
Think of the air.
I was saying last night, I said a joke, it was like, hey, what do you guys say we go biking, by the wildfires, I mean, it's so dumb, right? But that's it. This is the whole thing about how the media works to program the masses. It's always tugging at your heartstrings in every way, shape, and form. They do this with the shootings all the time. The shootings, right? It's very manipulative. It's that's all it is. I mean, the only way I can put it to you is that television is mind control, and there's no greater sort of mind control than in the corporate media itself. And the corporate media will do this routinely every single day, twice on Sundays, where they'll just take things and they'll make it up. If it suits the narrative, they'll use it. They could have had, this could be something from years ago that they'd captured and they were sitting on waiting for the right moment or something, right? But it fits the narrative, because what I was showing is, whether it's CNN, the BBC, the CBC, so whether it's Great Britain, Canada, or say United States, in terms of the media, the Disney media giants, the top story is the Australian bushfires. And I talk about how cyclical these things are, that every couple months there's another wildfire that is all over the news. And so you're constantly being hit. And then I was showing on the CBC how they had the big stories of the year, and one after another was with the fire theme over and over again, whether it's wildfires in California, right? Or fires in Australia, or fires in Africa, or whatever. It just bleeds into another, and it creates the narrative in the brain of the viewer that, oh my God, this is all out of control.
Our house is on fire.
Our house is on fire. The Extinction Rebellion. So here we are. Did you want to highlight some points in this particular? I like this 3.3%.
Yeah. No, I actually, sorry for skipping around so much, but I just was pointing out that. And then if you go to page 43 with your handy little trick there. Yeah. Just to point out at the last paragraph on the 1.16 there, you want to read it?
Yeah. Historically, fertility and mortality rates have fallen with higher levels of education and economic. It's funny because they say fertility and mortality, and again, as above, so below, pull the opposites, right? Fertility and mortality rates have fallen with higher levels of education and economic opportunity for women and girls It is thus expected that current advances in human capital will impact the future size and age composition of the global population.
They need to educate the girls. I know I've mentioned this before. They talk about that in John Glad's book, Jewish Eugenics, that's what's happening with their people, that they're so smart that they put off having children, and then there's less those that can, and so they want to do that.
Yeah, we showed with Melinda Gates, who's a certifiable demon from the deepest pits of hell, how Melinda Gates was talking about African women and saying that African women are severely deprived of smartphones.
Yep.
And that somehow, you know, she said 95% of African women don't have smartphones, and this is a big problem.
And I hear that slowly and sneaky they've gotten everybody to have a phone.
Peter that's Diamandis, it, right? I mean,
yeah, Singularity University, Peter Diamandis, he just said that in a keynote speech a few months ago, that everybody's been paying attention, but everybody's got the juice now.
Yeah, and the irony, of course, being that a cell phone doesn't make you freer; it actually imprisons you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So when Melinda Gates talks about African women not having cell phones, and this is a terrible problem, it's basically translation is African women are not being programmed heavily enough by feminism.
We don't have enough tracking.
Therefore, are having too many babies.
Yep. We got to stop that.
We have to stop that by giving them our Orwellian surveillance tech so that we can program them into being angry, militant, dyke feminists. And this is what they're doing. So this is it's a great little find that you have here, because it goes to show you this again. Like I would strongly sort of suggest that most of the people that would sign on to this, and most of these diplomats are pretty ignorant about what the greater purposes are just they bought into the whole, you know, equality matters, and you know,
perhaps
yeah, perhaps
a paycheck to
it's hard to know, but I'm saying, you know, like I'm not going to say that everyone that works for the United Nations is evil, right? I'm going to say
used to work for the United Nations.
Pardon me?
Mumby used to work for the United Nations.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so but the thing is this, that if you are so heavily programmed by the cultural Marxist sort of academia that is I mean, like say the United Nations is hiring women with feminist degrees, for instance, right, to fill positions, like say to be African representatives and stuff like that. And you know, this is how you can, just like, I mean, like so many people are so heavily programmed, like we were showing the other day with, you know, some of the hashtags that are used on Twitter, for instance, and you know, the people that buy into that we have to champion, you know, we have to end hate, for instance, or stop bullying, all these different things and that they don't realize. Like some of them obviously are just shills and playing their roles, but a lot of people don't realize what these things actually mean. When you say end hate, you're actually saying end freedom of speech.
Yeah.
So like they don't understand the repercussions. They've been so heavily programmed into thinking that they're fighting for a just cause, when they don't realize that they're actually undermining, you know, societal freedom by and large, and that they could actually be working to undo so much of what so many of our ancestors died for, basically, to give us the rights that we have. So like, for instance, destroying the First and Second Amendment of the American Constitution is something that you've got, like, for instance, a great example, of course, which is directly connected to the United Nations and is undoubtedly directly emanating from the United Nations. And there's no doubt about this, folks. They don't even hide it, which is the gun control, the destruction of the Second Amendment in the United States, where you have the March for Our Lives, led by Greta Hogg and co. And of course, these are a bunch of kids that were allegedly in some shooting, who, you know, found time while the said shooting was happening to talk about diversity and other things, which is, you know, what you would expect people who are engage in a shooting to be all giggly and talking about diversity. But nonetheless, you have now millions of kids around the world that will go out and protest thinking that all these school shootings are happening and kids are dying, so therefore we have to take away guns. This is a lie. This is an absolute lie. And what these kids are actually doing, and what everyone needs to realize, is that they are actually destroying our rights. So they are mobilizing these kids who are completely ignorant, who have not been brought up by proper mentoring, proper parenting, and who have no concept of the importance of the Second Amendment, and that they're actually being used as a weapon to destroy our freedoms. So it's,
and who's to say that they haven't had so many subliminal things put into them through all their digital lives, because they're on the screen all the time.
Yeah,
so many of these young
all the
people,
time, all the
their
time.
thoughts are not their own.
It's over. And again, with the feminism too, it's like Me Too, time's up, all these things. I mean, Me Too, time's up. You saw the hourglass symbol, right, for this report. This is all part of the same symbolism. The women are being programmed and re-traumatized over and over again, just like the blacks are being re-traumatized and past racist sort of things that have happened in the past are constantly being thrust in their face as a reminder of their inequality, so that the divide and conquer is pushed further. Instead of patching over and bringing people together, it's always a divide and conquer, and it's always using people, using the altruism or using the misguided altruism of people to be a weapon to undermine the freedoms that our ancestors fought for. So it's a really disingenuous way of programming the masses, and this is why it's so frustrating to do this, because again, that's why I mentioned Greta Thunberg. As like, even I could see cynics coming in. I could see some of the people that might be in the know of what's going on saying, so what, she's fake, who cares, it's her message that matters. And it of course it matters. You can't deceive people and then say, well, it's okay that we deceived you because this and this and that, right? No, because where does the deception end? If you're deceiving us on these things, then where does it end? What else are you deceiving? And when it comes to all these reports, we've shown this over and over again, where with global warming, for instance, where they ignore all the reports that come in and say, you know what, no, it's not nearly as bad as you're saying, and the data is not supporting your arguments. They just ignore that, just like they've done with the FDA and other world body governing sort of health departments, like the European, whatever their FDA equivalent did with aspartame, for instance, right? We showed that with aspartame was approved against, again, it was Donald Rumsfeld in the United States who worked for Searle, which was the precursor, I believe, of Monsanto, and then flipped tables in the government and approved aspartame. And aspartame has been proven in many studies to be highly toxic, carcinogenic, and very dangerous and toxic for the liver and all these different things. And yet they approve these things by ignoring all the science, science is real, that actually show that these things are very harmful. So we have...
and it's made using synthetic biology, which the rest of their nightmare food world, that comes into this a little bit later too.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is nuts. Anyways, where should we go next?
So just as you go to page 70, people just remember, next time somebody says, and we already knew this, but next time somebody says, like, gotta educate the girls, it's for the girls, it's because they don't want them to have babies.
That's it.
Yep.
Again, and always have to say this, I'm 100% for equality, sure, between men and women, but you have to be reasonable about what you're saying, right? Because we want any healthy society I mean, I gave Hungary as an example, where Hungary is concerned about their population. They're seeing the graphs, and maybe they don't have the massive amount of Kalergi plan happening at the present time that the rest of Europe does. But they're actually the government is saying, we're going to give money to women and to couples, to parents who stay at home and have babies. And the more babies you have, the more money we're going to give you because we want you to produce. We want you to reproduce, right? But what we have is the opposite throughout the world. It's very rare that you find country. I know Russia is another country like that. There's not too many countries. And then you had China with the one child per family policy, which was disastrous in many ways. But you know, those are different contrasting sort of elements. But really, what you want from what you would hope from any country is that they would do everything they can to encourage women to have babies. And instead, we have the opposite. We have feminism being pushed along with the LGBT, WXYZ, heavy doses of lesbianism being pushed through porn and everything else as an attempt. And of course, as we mentioned, education, right? But what type of education are most of these people doing? And what type of education are most of these academic institutions providing? What kind of degrees are they funding now? When you see all these research grants and massive amounts of money is being funneled into universities, it's often these, cultural Marxist diplomas and PhDs that are the ones that are getting all the funding. So they want women to go in and basically get feminist degrees, right? And then, of course, if women are going into higher education, usually you get out of high school 18, so then you're going to high school, you're going to higher education, and then they want you to go further and further into higher education. You might be coming out of university in your mid to late 20s, even your 30s in some cases,
and then you can land a job with your degree, and then maybe if you're lucky, if you choose to have children, your job will offer education and childcare.
Yeah, that's it, right?
Little ones. I've seen that pop up lots lately.
Yeah. So and of course with women, the longer that you wait to have children, the more dangerous it is and all that. And that's all, like, to me, that's like Bill Gates 101 thinking, right? Where it's like, well, if we can get women to go further in education and get feminist degrees, then we can stop them from having babies when they're younger, and then they'll be less inclined to, this is all what's happening. So we have this perfect orchestration, which is, and again, on top of all of this, which is the most important thing, is when they are like, what are human beings supposed to do? I mean, what is all life supposed to do, right? All life is here to reproduce. That's the purpose of life, really. Right? The birds, the bees, the flowers, and the trees. It's all animal life. So when people are not reproducing, that affects them upstairs because they're not living the natural life cycle. So they're normalizing all the mental illness and depression at the same time. And then they're saying, no, identify with your mental illness, and here you go. The government will provide you pills and whatever else. And your mental illness is a superpower. So they want, and then of course, if people come in and tell you, you know what, you should be strong, then they're telling you that you're a terrible person and everything else. So, I mean, we have this perfect storm that is being orchestrated to destroy the family nucleus, which is one of the major objectives, obviously, of this New World Order, the cultural Marxist, feminist, toxic programming in academia and elsewhere, and all of your media, your movies, right? Whether it be Star Wars or Elsa, Elsa needs a lesbian, all these things, right? Everything, Disney, are all programming. And then the girl power, right, that they've been promoting forever. It's all about deconstructing the family, and it's all about depopulation and getting people out of the gene pool. So we have a complete deconstruction of the family nucleus, which has a severe mental effect on human beings. And then, of course, they're saying it's okay to be mentally ill.
It's okay, especially with this next thing here. It's okay.
Yeah.
Mentally ill. This one kind of made me think of our last show with the bots in your brain, the neural nanobots. The second to the last paragraph in that box there, cognitive science.
All right, so cognitive science, psychology, behavioral economics, neurobiology, and brain research can provide important insights in that regard. They're
trying to change behaviors. Sorry.
Yeah. They might indicate, for example, what is going on in our brains when we hear science-based information about sustainable challenges and consequently make decisions and choices.
So they need to study our brains to figure out, what are we thinking Why don't we believe the Extinction Rebellion people? But
Yeah, and again too, to reiterate, the hive mind is very, very real. This what we have is a precursor to the physical, actual sort of Borg-like existence. If you know Star Trek and the Borg, the collective mind, the hive mind, all that symbolism is everywhere these days. I show it all the time. But what the majority of people that are falling into the feminism and the SJW and the LGBT and all of that, that's all hive mind programming. It's very, very clear, and it's very toxic, because really intelligence in many ways is the opposite of that, right? Intelligence is being able to think for yourself, to be able to think outside the box, to be able to think critically.
And
This
I never saw the show, but this Borg that you talk of,
yeah.
is this though, once if they take it away, you die? Like,
Yeah,
not
yeah, I'll show
survive
you.
after you have
I'll
it.
show you here, because it's very interesting symbolism. Borg here in Star Trek. People, and of course they've just rebooted the whole Star Trek Picard, if I'm not mistaken. And the Borg are cybernetic. They're a mixture of organic life and machine, and they incorporate. They're extremely diverse. In fact, they're the most diverse because they incorporate. We will. What's the? I'll see the quote here. Let me see. Borg quote. Resistance is futile, is what they always say. Here. Let's see if this gives it here. We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service. Resistance is futile.
I love that they're taking on what makes you, like they're taking on your code.
Yeah. And that's it. So the Borg, they go around in their giant cubes, these giant ships, and they incorporate every species. Like they'll wipe you out. Well, if you resist, they'll blow you up and kill you and all that. But they'll just take you and grab you and hook you up to the machines, and then next thing you know, you're part of the Borg here. And it's very, very. This is the cube ships that they go around, and they have a Borg. They have a queen, of course, right? So it's all hive mind programming that is happening. In fact, there's a video from the Transhumanist channel that I follow. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but they just came out the other day, and the video was, "Are we becoming a hive mind?"
I think I subscribe to that channel.
Yeah. That's the channel there. So the H plus or human plus sort of channel, where they're kind of championing on this, and they actually reference the Borg all the time. They say, is this going to be a good thing for us, or is it going to be some sort of dystopia? But by the end of each video, it's like, no, this will be wonderful.
Of course.
So yeah, the symbolism is very important. We have to be cognizant of when they say no child left behind, what they really mean, right? That means everyone will be part of their collective, basically, and nobody will be away from it. And so we have, and again, with your Disney media, you can watch any show, any movie, and you'll see this collective mind. And again, a lot of people who are very much aware of communism will see the elements of communism massively in this type of hive mind programming, because communism is a form of hive mind programming where everyone must think the same. Right. And you see that with North Korea. When they show North Korea, it's like you got to cheer harder. When Kim Jong-un or whoever it is going down the street, you have to cheer the hardest, because cameras are watching you, and they'll notice if your hair hasn't been cut in the last couple of weeks, and if your collar is not properly ironed and stuff like that. Like this is where we're heading towards. We're heading towards a collective mindset, and they're going to use fear, as they are already in many ways, to program the masses into compliance. So yeah, pretty crazy. And it's very, very important. I'm going to do a whole thing. Maybe, Camille, we can do a podcast in the future on the whole hive mind thing, because there's so many different elements to it,
Sure.
especially when you bring in the nanotech and the transhumanism, which is all something that we're all going to have to grapple with. We always have to keep in mind, folks, that we are changing rapidly. Like our tech, and again, tech is a double-edged sword, but nerds may be the death of us all, because the stuff that they're developing is if it's in the wrong hands, could be instrumental in massive death and depopulation. And we covered that a couple weeks ago when we did the whole nanotech
Nightmare.
thing. Nightmare. Anyway, so where should we go next? You want anything else?
Very
in this?
next page. Oh, I heard myself.
Oh, okay. Is it still there?
It was a second ago.
Okay. Let me know if it comes in again.
Okay.
Okay.
So here on this page, oh, I'm still echoing. Under science and technology, we get in the very last paragraph area, CRISPR.
Oh, there we go. The CRISPR babies.
Yeah, I don't have the footnotes on this. I went through footnotes. I have so many more things to talk about than what I'm going to try to bring up today. But I don't have the footnote available for this right offhand. But yeah, they're talking about editing plants and things, which I'm going to send you a link right now that if you wanted to show people this website, I keep this open on my computer as a pin tab, and that way I can keep an eye. It's like a running thing of all these different crazy science as it comes to foods and whatnot that they're doing. You'd probably have to make it a lot bigger because it's pretty small, but it's just country after country that's, Africa and Ghana is being more accepting of GMO soy and all these different things, like what's going on in the news of that land. So I figured I'd share that. Seed Quest.
Great. Yeah, that's good. That's good for me too, because I'm always wanting to keep abreast with what is officially being, released in terms of these types of initiatives that you see every day.
This is the all news right here, but on the side there, you can see the topics, and sometimes it'll kick you into this really weird thing. So just go back to SeedQuest and hit news, and then you'll be
awesome. There. Thank you very much for that. Very great. Okay, so let's just show what they were talking about here.
Okay.
In context of sustainable development goals, technology can be central to resolving trade-offs that can arise if individual goals and targets are addressed in isolation. For example, 2.3 requires a doubling of agriculture productivity, which could be achieved by prioritizing productivity gains over everything else. But that could then negatively impact a myriad of other targets, including those related to livelihoods, health, climate change, mitigation, biodiversity, and water. However, those issues can be minimized through strategic development of new technologies, from advanced water use sensors to climate-smart agriculture to renewable energy technologies. In another example, advanced in gene editing technologies, notably clustered regular interspaced short palindromic repeats, CRISPR. I didn't really know what the acronym stood for. I mean, I've covered it before, obviously, but clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats.
Yeah.
This is the gene editing, right? Can improve.
One kind.
Yeah, can improve the prospects for gene therapy at the individual level with gains in productivity and control vector-borne diseases such as malaria and facilitate precision breeding of plants and animals. Deploying advanced technologies like artificial intelligence could also play a major role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Many such applications are under development but need careful assessment of potential broader consequences before deployment.
And it goes further into artificial intelligence on the next page. But
all right,
the second to the last paragraph.
Artificial intelligence promises to bring a new generation of sustainable development solutions. However, in order to foster public trust in AI systems, AI regulations and codes of conduct should strike a proper balance between technological progress and people's right to privacy and human dignity, as if digitalization is often described as a huge upheaval to which societies must adapt. We will, you must Do not resist. Resistance is futile. On the other hand, digitalization, pardon me, must be shaped in such a way that it can serve as a lever to support transformations towards and be synchronized with sustainability. For example, the job losses due to technological change being anticipated at various scales, policymakers must work in partnership with private sector to provide effective measures to support displaced workers towards new jobs. And we see that, like, what are the first jobs that are going to be phased out in the near future?
Anything with a middleman.
Yeah, well, but actually, when you think about it, like, okay, let's think of the public sector, or we'll think about in your city, for instance. Like, what jobs do you see being wiped out? If we look at the big tech corporations, and then we look at the technology.
In my town, all sorts of stuff for the jobs at City Hall and things like that. These people are pushing to turn this place into a smart city, but part of saving money is going to be getting rid of their jobs because the machine can do it so much easier.
Yeah, so like we think about, for instance, driverless cars.
Yep.
Which is a big initiative of this. I mean, again, they don't want people to own vehicles in the future. They want to outlaw private property. This is very, very important for people to understand. And I did a whole show the other day about that, where they're calling in California, for instance, that, the time about, we can't have private property anymore because it's causing global warming, basically. Where it comes to vehicles, they're going to make it like they already have. So like here in Montreal, for instance, we were the first city to develop what they call the Bixi bikes, which is a biking system. It's the city itself controls and sets up all these depots all over the city where, okay, I'll just show this to you while I'm discussing, because I want people to pay attention to the transformation. I'll put Bixi Montreal here. I'll show you some images. This is just to give you an example of where things are going. It's not all necessarily terrible, right? It can be guised as good, because I do believe in getting exercise is very important. But this is where they're pushing humanity. So in Montreal, everywhere, they have these types of setups.
And no doubt they know who used them and where they went.
Yeah. That's all connected with your smartphone.
Yep.
Right? Your dumb people smartphone sort of thing. And so they've got all these, and then they have the electric cycles. I'll just put electric bikes, Montreal. So these are these ones here are everywhere now. They're called Jump, and you can just leave them anywhere. So you might be it's quite something. I've shown this in, I think, on some of my podcasts, where you'd be walking down the street and somebody just parked one there, right? And they have the electric scooters, the same thing here. Electric scooters, Montreal. These are them. The exact same thing. And they're everywhere. They just leave them everywhere, right? People stick them up in trees and stuff, which I find is hilarious. Okay, so they're called Lime electric scooters. And believe me, they're all over my neighborhood. I almost trip on these things walking around. These are examples of where everything is going.
How did they go in the snow?
Well, they that's it. When this, I think they take them in for.
So they're useful for a few months out of the year.
Well, yeah, I mean, like 4 or 5 months out of the year, they're probably not out there.
Put skis on them.
Yeah, that'll be next, though.
Yeah.
They'll be doing it, and again, getting some exercise. Now, this is the Jump thing is a hybrid, so you do pedaling, but it's minimal, sort of thing, right? So it's to encourage you, and again, it seems nice because on the surface, less cars, less congestion. Now, what I showed recently, and this is in my neighborhood and all over Montreal, is that they have taken over 3/4 of every street and given it to the cyclists.
They're doing that here too.
Yes. So the Montreal, it's Montreal Bike Pass. I don't know if there'll be anything recent. Bike Pass. The Bike Pass themselves are everywhere these days, and now they're taking over most of the roads. Here's an example of one downtown sort of thing. Now, this used to be, I think this is de Maisonneuve Boulevard here. It used to be 3 lanes across for automobiles. Now it's, I either a single lane. I think it's a single lane here coming down, and now you have bikes everywhere. Now, the amount of cars as opposed to the amount of bikes, it's astronomical in favor of cars, right? There's very few people, but yet they're setting all of this up, much like the ghost cities in China and stuff. They're setting this all up for the future of what they're changing to. They showed it in the film Plandopolis. Have you ever seen that, by the way?
I haven't, but I think I've seen a lot of stills that Anonymous, didn't he show?
Yeah. We showed this before, the Plandopolis, which is actually produced by the United Nations. It's very disturbing. And they show all this, like where in 2030, you're going to live in massive cities where you have a global food council, which will give you rations, and that there are no vehicles. Everybody lives in small little cubicles, just like the casita homes and all that, right? The sewer tube homes. And that most of the people are already cyborgs, basically. So like this woman in this particular one, her boyfriend's a cyborg, and she thinks he's doing some important job for the city or something, but she thinks he's just playing video games all day, using his cyborg brain sort of thing. But they show, the cities, how the future of the cities. You only have electric scooters that you can rent, electric bikes. That's what they'll give you. The only people that'll have cars in the future will be elites and stuff like that. This is all happening. So they don't hide it. They show you what's coming, right? I don't know if I could.
But people don't necessarily even believe that Agenda 21 is a thing. In fact, we have like a hotline that taxpayers can call in to this public cable show that once a week. And months ago, some guy called in and brought up Agenda 21, and they're like, that doesn't even exist. And they made fun of him and they hung up. I called the other day and I was like, and just so you know, you can go right on the UN's website and see.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? So I have the video. Can you see my screen? Because it just got big for a second. I want to make sure it's still coming in. This is, I believe, the video here. Global climate change deal imminent. So this is in 2040, as they say, Plandopolis, right? And they show you here some of the headlines dealing with this. Welcome to Plandopolis, a day in the life of V here. Maybe I could play this. You should see this. You haven't seen this before, right?
No.
Okay. Let's just see this. So Plandopolis here. In a world of fossil fuels and expensive energy, the only solution is tightly planned and controlled urban transport. Okay, so actually we'll go back to the beginning here. Forum for the future. Do you know what that means? Do you get the symbolism?
The 666?
Yes. Forum for the future. FFF. Fridays for fun, right? Fight, fight, fight. I always point that out. It's their 666 with their lotus symbolism here that's coming in. So I'm going to play this here. We're going to listen in. I think I can get away with it because it seems like it's on YouTube. So. Okay, it's important to point this out here, how this is, look at this is the future homes.
Yeah. Little boxes.
Yeah, all these little, they all look the same. Now, these aren't homes. This is not your home. This is, you're in a cube in the corner sort of thing, right?
That you can pick up and take anywhere.
Yeah. So, and again, it was interesting, showing the feminist sort of character rising up as they were coming through. And this couple doesn't have children, by the way, of course.
Oh, hi. I'm so glad you're on time. I'm V. I'm looking forward to showing you around Plandopolis today. My husband works from home. He's a virtual engineer working on one of the city's desalination plants. He controls the robots who do all the important maintenance. I think he basically plays computer games for a living. You ready to go? Have you got your calorie card open on your smartphone? I registered your...
Okay, so calorie card on your smartphone. Now, how do you access all these things? In like what I showed you, the Lime scooters, the bikes in Montreal, it's all using your smartphones.
Yeah.
Everything is going this way, folks. So the calorie credits that they say here, this is no joke. This is gonna happen. I mean, this is where it's all going. This is why I say, even if you think, oh, I'm gonna live off the grid and all this, they want to implement this for everyone. So here we go.
Have you got your calorie card open on your smartphone? I registered your visit with Slick Travel Corp the other day, so they've allotted you a journey time to match mine. It makes so much sense, doesn't it? Switch off brain and go to work. With this many people around, I'm glad there's a mega computer in charge. We're so lucky. Our kids were allocated...
So a mega computer in charge, of course, artificial intelligence, smart cities, right? All these things. Plandopolis High School.
...to school quite near my practice, so I can drop them off on the way. It saves on our calorie ration. Well, it won't be long until the little darlings get their career announcements. They've been working so hard, so I'm sure they'll get something good. Not that there's anything wrong with fixing carbon scrubbers for a living or anything. Are you hungry? Let's pop to the market as we're past. Right, what's on the menu this month? No, not meat.
So you got the Global Food Council, seasonal produce, better for everyone. And again, it's based on credits, right? You get extra credits for your birthday or something like that. And again, the type of food is much, and this is from many years ago. Camille, I don't know what year, 2014 or something like this, maybe 2015 at the latest sort of thing. But yeah, you've even got the United Nations similar type symbolism here. And yeah, you have, this is where people go to get their food. All right.
It's not your birthday. The Global Food Council are doing a really good job of keeping food production going. I mean, you don't get the choice you used to, but we're better off than most. I think it's probably easiest to walk from here. You barely see a car in the city centre nowadays, unless you're rich. Well, the state knows they just aren't practical anymore. We're all trying to meet our global carbon deal. Electric bikes are so much better for getting around our neighbourhood. And why waste valuable space on car parks when you can use them to grow food? I don't care what you say, Alex. They don't deserve to live in that ghetto. They are completely disconnected. No high-speed transport system, no new internet. They miss out on jobs and many essential services too. Oh, hi again. What a day. I had to make an emergency visit to the Cry Freedom ghettos. I mean, I miss my sister like mad, but I'm glad they went when they were moved to New Amsterdam. They're safe from climate change on the floating city. That must be her now.
The floating cities too, which is something that, you know, the Google barges and so many other examples of the future type of ways that they're going to house people potentially. Again,
Stack 'em and pack 'em.
Stack them and pack them.
Yeah.
Sewer tubes, you know, shipping containers. Anyways, here we go.
It's much easier to meet up with friends virtually now. So many cities have banned cars in central areas. Ooh, looks like she's got some juicy gossip.
All right, that's just one of several that they have here. Find out more about how we may live, life, and travel in cities in the future. And they go forumforthefuture.org projects/megacities on the move. So, you know, like a lot of this is the United Nations. Like this, they're showing you, right? Megacities on the move aims to help you understand the challenges of the future and plan products, services, and strategies for sustainable urban mobility. It is a joint project with Embark, the FIA Foundation, and Vodafone. Right? They're basically showing you where it's all going. So when I'm showing you this stuff here in my own city and seeing the dramatic change of everything so quickly and rapidly, can't help but think about this video and them showing us slices of what's to come, much of which is already materialized presently. So we'll go back to the document here, though. I wanted you to see that, Camille. There's like, I think there's, because the one I was thinking of, I think there might be 4 different versions of Plandopolis. There's at least another one, as far as I know. So
It said it was one of 4 possible scenarios.
yeah,
Yeah.
because but it's like the same. I believe it's the same characters in it. So yeah. Anyways, let's get back here. What should we look at next here?
Page 82, we come to cell phones.
Okay, let's see.
Doesn't mention Melinda, but
why won't it give me the? Oh, there it is. All right, page 82.
yeah, so they're talking about, in the little box that pops up, they're talking about how they can harness the cell phone data to track, to watch for different outbreaks and crop problems. That I've got written down somewhere else, but yeah, that they can include phone calls and text messages and data things to track patterns through citizens' cell phones. It's a good thing they're getting those to everybody.
So box 211 here, mitigating health emergencies using emerging technology. Telefonica research in Spain, in collaboration with the Institute of Scientific Interchange and United Nations Global Pulse, is currently being used in Colombia to monitor the epidemic spread of Zika virus at the local level. That involves harnessing mobile phone data based on call detail records created by telecom operators for billing purposes, including data on phone calls, text messages, and data connections. Those digital traces are collected continuously and provide an ongoing and relatively low-cost way of tracking and identifying human movements at an unprecedented scale. That can help public health authorities in planning timely interventions. In Mexico, Telefonica partnered with the government to tackle the spreading H1N1 influenza by monitoring mobility patterns of citizens' cell phones. So again, I mean, you should know this. If you don't know this, your smartphone is a surveillance device. If you think of it as anything else, you're a fool.
Well, and as they're saying, like half of the world has just been given these cell phones, these smartphones. So do they know how much they're being tracked? I wonder. I'd want to say something not on the UN thing, just like a public service announcement sort of thing on the influenza it mentioned there.
Yeah.
I just want to say a little thing from my herbalist for people to consider. If you're, I know it's flu season, right? And don't get the shot, but that if the flu, if you get sick and it's in your head still, that's when they say to take elderberry and echinacea, things like that people think of when they think of the flu, if they don't just take a pill. But if it moves to your chest, if it leaves your head and moves to your chest and you're coughing or anything like that, according to my herbalist, you shouldn't take things like elderberry or echinacea anymore, because it's going to cause what they call a cytokine storm, especially if you're healthy. They say this is what took out so many people in the big flu outbreak back in the day, is that healthy people were dropping. I don't know necessarily that they were taking these cytokine increasing herbs like echinacea, elderberry, honey, and ginseng. These are things to avoid when it goes to your chest. And then you should start taking things like garlic and turmeric and ginger and things like that. So there we go. Look up cytokines and watch out. Don't let it, if it goes to your chest, don't keep taking that stuff. You can get even worse. You drown yourself in an immune response, basically.
But shouldn't you just be saying you got to take vaccinations?
No. No, take your plants, just take the right ones at the right time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is again, herbal solutions are the way to go. But then again, be aware of things like that, because you have to
just a side note.
Yeah, very, very good to put that in. Now, yeah, that's it too with the smartphones. Again, showing that in the Plandopolis video, that everything is accessed through your smartphone. Now, of course, the smartphone will be in your head. It'll be, I mean, the brain chips are coming. So, and
have a smart head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'll have the smart chip in the dumb head, right? The head will be dumb. That's
You
for
won't
sure.
have to do anything for yourself anymore.
No,
Just kind of
yeah,
atrophy your
you'll be
brain.
like on Black Mirror. You'll be biking for credits or something, porn credits, or you'll be biking to be able to turn off the porn.
I'd say I should watch that show because I've only seen 2 episodes, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Well, that
a
show, yeah. Again,
bad.
the nephew of Edward Bernays formed Netflix, so I mean, that's you got to
Is
know that.
is
Yeah,
it a
they're showing
Netflix
you.
original? Black
Pardon
Mirror?
me?
Is it a Netflix original sort of
Yeah,
thing?
I think
Oh,
so.
wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
well, lovely. The
yeah.
next
Again,
the next 2 things, I just wanted to skip through
yeah,
them really fast because I have just about an hour left. I can go
yeah,
till 4:30 today,
absolutely.
but I've got so many pages still.
Okay, go ahead.
Page
Shoot.
89 at the bottom and then spreading on to 90. I just had to laugh because they're, well, when you get there,
Oh yeah,
gender inequality, but they're only talking about male and female.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
So
somebody should inform them. That's
yeah,
so
this is you're
genderist.
missing a whole bunch of
Ah, come on.
LGBTQWXYZ plus.
Yeah.
Gender inequality in the labor market. Women make up half the world's population, but in 2017, labor force participation rates for only 26%. I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, if you're having babies, it's kind of hard.
Yeah. Don't do
But
that.
that's it, though. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, no. You stop having babies. You go to that glass tower and get your cultural Marxist degree and become an angry feminist dyke. Yeah, maybe.
Everybody else is doing it.
Yeah. Here's your
Come on.
smartphone. Melinda Gates, helped you. Here she goes. She sent you a smartphone
Yeah.
so that you can search the internet privately. I mean, it's out of this world. So women make up half the world's population, but in 2017, the labor force participation rates for women were 26.5 percentage points lower than for men. Of those women who are employed in developing countries, 92% are in informal employment compared with 87% of men.
It's nothing terribly exciting.
I mean,
I was just laughing
seriously.
because they only said male and female, so I was cracking a joke.
Yeah, and here you go. You've got the charts here. It's interesting. Isn't this interesting? The role reversal, because the red now for the women and the blue for the men, which really in Freemasonry and most symbolism, it's the opposite. But yeah, interesting. You could say, well, maybe it's dark pink or whatever. World, Africa, Americas, and it's always the men that have that. But men, last time I checked, although it's changing though, men are having babies apparently now, according to some. But I mean, yeah, that's just this is the way it works, eh? Let's throw all the family and child raising and childbirth out the window and pretend it doesn't exist.
Yep.
Because that's all it's doing. They're not explaining why women don't work as much as men or make as much money as men, because in most countries that aren't developed, I hate that word, women are living traditional lifestyles, right?
Yep.
And having lots of babies, which is, you can't have lots of babies if you live in Africa and you're in a very sort of basic sort of domicile. It could be a mud hut for all we know, right? Where you've got to prepare the meals, breastfeed, you got to take care of the kids, deal with the goats and the crops and everything else, right? You can't have you can't be working in some glass tower if you're in that situation, but they want
you have to actually live life.
Yeah, you're actually living life. So like the way I look at African women, and whenever they show African women, I'm like, look, first of all, they're all smiling, which is amazing when you think about it. It's amazing. I remember when I was in Cuba quite a while back, but I was driving around in the countryside, right, with some friends, and we were like, it's something that's really strange about Cuba is like all these people are dirt poor, but they're always smiling.
I was just watching a video about Cuba yesterday. I subscribe to this one Chinese propaganda channel, and they are talking about how that China has an electric bus company in Cuba, and that once a week, all of the Chinese employees that work at this bus company, they take Spanish lessons together because it makes them integrate better, and their customers are so happy. But I thought that was fun. China.
Yeah. They have those camel buses. It's quite interesting. Maybe it might have changed by then. It's been a while since I've been there, but just all I'm trying to say is that happiness is relative, right? Just because you have a smartphone,
Yeah, it doesn't come from gizmos.
a 4K television, a sports car even, right?
Happy little consumers.
That does not make you happy.
Yeah.
You might be much, much happier living, in the forest or, much less is more kind of thing where you don't have all those things and those distractions and you're out interacting with nature and humans all day long.
Agreed.
Right. And I honestly know that's a fact. Like I'm not even suggesting that that's a possibility. I'm saying that's a fact. I'm saying that most human beings, I'm just going to be honest. I'm not going to take up too much more time with this, but I'm going to tell you that most human beings are unhappy because we are not living the way that humans are supposed to live.
Mm-hmm.
We're not living in contact with nature. We have no direct contact with our foods. We do not interact with our earth the way that we're supposed to. We are in artificial environments that are highly toxic. We are, not under sunlight most of the time. We're under, compact fluorescent lights and things like this, things that really have negative effects on us. We have all this noise and pollution around us that messes with our circadian rhythm. And all human beings would be much better off, being in a natural surrounding as much as possible. I don't. There's no way that I think that somebody could argue otherwise, but that's the reality. Is they want to take us away from that, stick us in their massive mega cities, give us credits, for our food and whatever else, and maybe you get a certain amount of credits, you get to ride a better bicycle for the day or something like that. But they are programming everyone into a hive mind. So anyways, let's move ahead here. I don't want to.
Page 101, just a little note on there that I thought was interesting. It says that 60% of the commercial seed market is owned by 6 companies.
Yeah.
And they also have 3/4 of the pesticide market. And it says that 4 companies account for up to 90% of the global grain trade. That's
insane.
Scroll down a little bit, but it's like,
these 6
it's the
companies.
Disney food company.
Yeah, these 6 companies, are they the same ones that wanted to that they basically merged together?
Probably.
Do you know about this? I don't know if Anonymous is around, but he sent me a link too. And this goes back years where Monsanto and Bayer and all these corporations were trying to make a mega corporation. And I think they've quietly done it behind the scenes so that these corporations will control pretty much 90 or 95% of the food supply of the world.
Lovely.
This is just out of this world where everything is going, folks. Everyone needs to be really paying attention how it's all being rolled out. As I mentioned. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say on the next page, what were you saying?
Well, can you show me where that the 6 corporations here?
Yeah, it's that one. I think. Yeah. There.
Yeah. Concentration of ownership here. I just want to read this out because this is very important. Concentration of ownership. Although there are many economic actors, in the global food market, many of its components are controlled by a relatively small number of actors. Around 60% of the commercial seed market is under control of 6 companies, along with around 3/4 of the pesticide market. 4 companies account for up to 90% of the global grain trade. Concentration runs the risk of reducing the resilience of the global food system by generating uniformity in industrial agriculture practice. Furthermore, the concentration of trade and production can be an impediment to small-scale farmers. These are the same banksters that are orchestrating all this.
Yeah.
And they throw that in as a little thing. It could be a bad thing, but you know what? Don't worry about it. All right. Sorry.
So the next page in the box, it's talking about a global surveillance system for crop diseases. They say like it's similar to when you go down and follow the little notes, it says it's similar to the global influenza surveillance and response system, and that the EU has reference labs for like food additives and GM and food and feed and things like that. And so just to be able to surveil, there's some very interesting CRISPR's in there if you want to read a
Yeah.
chunk. I don't have
So
anything.
global
specific.
surveillance system for crop diseases. At a global level, yield losses caused by pests and diseases are estimated to average 21.5% in wheat, 30% in rice, 22.6% in maize, 17% potatoes, 21% soybeans. These crops constitute half of the global calorie intake. The distribution, host range, and impact of plant diseases is driven by climate change and global trade, while many of them can spread or reemerge after having been under control. While many national and regional plant protection organizations monitor and contain crop disease outbreaks, many countries, especially low-income countries, lack in efficiency or efficiently exchanging information, thus delaying coordinated transnational responses to avoid disease establishment and spread. The International Plant Protection Convention was adopted in 1951 and allows participating countries in the national and regional plant protection organizations to collaborate in order to improve the awareness of threats to the agriculture from entry and spread of regulated pests and pathogens. It comprises of 183 national organizations, 10 regional organizations in cooperation with the Convention Secretariat and the Commission of Phytosanitary Measures, and it experiences many challenges, including dealing with the high number of regulated pests, approximately 400 in Europe alone, with limited resources. Major advances have been made in disease diagnostics in the past decade, particularly through genome sequencing, of course, the aforementioned CRISPR-based diagnostics, bioinformatics, tools for genomic epidemiology, genomic prediction, data mining, data analysis, and modeling, and development of social media platforms for information sharing. These advances will transform the speed, accuracy, and wealth of information collected during disease outbreaks. Mobile and real-time plant disease diagnostics, for example, is near real-time genomics-based point-of-care diagnostics platform for wheat yellow rust, which directly informs disease risk forecasting in Ethiopia. To be more prepared against unexpected crop disease spread, scientists have proposed the establishment of global surveillance system that could bring established biosecurity practices and network facilities to low-income countries, thus allowing them to quickly respond to emerging disease outbreaks and to stabilize food supplies. The global surveillance system model is based on lessons learned from previous outbreaks, regional plant protection efforts, and best practices implemented in high-income countries.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
it gets
nuts.
better.
It's nuts, though, because it's like, look, it's always problem, reaction, solution, right? Oh, we had this, we had,
Oh, yeah. Like they
outbreak
talk
or-
about in a couple pages. They're like, oh, the use of artificial fertilizers, that can cause some problems, so we shouldn't
Yeah.
do that, even though we've been doing that for so long.
The idea, too, of being able to monitor crops around the world.
Yeah.
And, of course, they're going to use drones and nanotech to be able to do this.
And that's on page 105. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, let's go
The
ahead.
Space Climate Observatory, because it's being established to federate resources, data, and energies. It's also on that page 105. It's on the right-hand side, the first full paragraph in the information systems is where they're talking about that.
So farmers can reduce, I'll highlight this. I know it comes in kind of dark, but farmers can reduce on-farm losses and become more resilient if they have better access to market information along with data on climate and production. The agro-ecological approach would entail thorough data collection and research to identify areas best suited for agricultural production, carbon storage, provision of high biodiversity habitats, and biophysical climate regulation. Putting in place a space climate observatory and an initiative supported by all European space agencies, as well as other states, including China, India, Mexico, Morocco, and the Russian Federation and the United Arab Emirates, to guarantee free access to interoperable space-based observation data will be a significant step forward in making useful information for water, food, and land supply through Earth monitoring system data collection using the social media platform Twitter can be used to cheaply determine real-time market prices for agricultural products, and satellite imagery can be used to establish crop health, and in connection with machine learning, drones can build detailed weather models to help farmers maximize their yields while reducing their environmental impact. And again, we're talking about the surveillance state being justified, right, to produce more yield and protect crops, when really they are going to be able to monitor everything that we do, including what we're saying is everything that we grow.
Oh yeah, I have it in the one video that I did that is actually has I think like 100 times it's been watched or something. The one video on the UN and Pfizer and some other drug company on tracking all the livestock with the tags and the ingestibles and the necklaces. And there, one of the things I show in one of the links is the UN's space whole thing. They've got the satellite constellation. Yeah.
That's nuts.
There's so many satellite constellations going up. The
Earth is flat.
Yeah, just believe that. There's nothing going on up above you. No.
Just take out that ballot. Whack it. Richie from Boston.
I feel better now.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's nuts.
On the other side of the page, they talk about genetically modified this and that. That's not, there's some I think, more interesting things coming up. But on the next page, fifth one of 6, where you are, scroll down a little more. It's talking about for goal 15, which is life on land. They're saying that it might require a reduction in the amount of land that's appropriated for food production, especially with the current focus on developing the bioeconomy, which if you Google what a bioeconomy is, that's an economy with biotech and biotech based. But looking at the one footnote that they have there, I have to see if I have it ready to give you. Anyway, the beef, the price of protein, I probably do have it, is the name of that. If you want to read that, I don't
absolutely.
The part there, but the price of protein thing is talking about how cows, they use a lot of land. They use a lot of land, and to have milk and because apparently milk.
But do the cows like destroy the land that they use, or they just eat?
No, they make it better. Unless they're doing the intensive animal torture.
I like to see cows out on the pasture, because I think, well, this is, at least there's your food, there's your steak. You want to go to that farm that has the cows out in the pasture and get your steak, right? Because then you get it from, exactly where it's coming from. But they want you to think, well, cow farts are going to destroy the planet. And again, it's like, I'm not sure. I don't think cows destroy the land that they use. And then that's totally disingenuous, the way that they say, look how much land it takes to make a slab of beef. But it's like, well, the land could be used for many different things, and the cows aren't destroying the land, and that's part of the ecosystem. And guess what? I imagine the cow poop helps fertilize a lot of the plants that grow. So again and again and again, they want, of course, the bigger objective is to program people into eating their lab meat, their plant-based lab meat, concoctions. And this is a huge thing about the vegetarian sort of movement, which is controlled by the United Nations, again with PETA as well. PETA using animals to tug at your heartstrings. You have to look at the bigger picture of what PETA is, a United Nations organization, and that their whole objective is to make you turn away from eating regular meat and hunting and things like that, and to accepting, a vegetarianism and soy-based products, and of course the plant-based type. Plant-based, you got to put that in quotes, because people think plant. Yeah, it's made from a plant. It's like, no, it's made in a lab in Tel Aviv, more likely, or Silicon Valley or something, right? And it's like, yeah, trying to trick, and we of course done whole shows on that, right? Which is so crazy to begin with, but it does show you like the Soylent Green is real, folks. I mean, maybe not at this point in time. It may not be your uncle's or your grandfather that's in your burger at this point, but don't hold your breath. I mean,
But toward the bottom of that paragraph, it
Yeah.
does talk about the novel protein sources and whatnot. I did link just now to the price of protein, which is one of the sources for that. Not to get too sucked into it, but that's where they're telling you that the cows take up more space and that's a factor in this, and that they do say in there that vegetable proteins have an amino acid composition that's less easy to digest for humans than animal proteins. But in this study, they didn't take the difference in protein quality into account. So they just
and
are saying,
that's huge,
Yeah.
folks, because I mean, it's you are what you eat.
yeah,
and
and I
protein.
know people
Go ahead.
laugh about that, but it's like, yeah, you get the building blocks. You're not a banana. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is it's serious stuff, and again, it kind of comes back to the whole theme of dehumanization. So we show the Borg, right? The future type of human beings with the nanotech and the brain chips and everything in their body, which is not that far off, folks. I mean, the brain chips are already being implemented. The nanotech, they say by 2030, the same United Nations type organizations are saying that by 2030, everyone on the planet will have nanotech within their system. And it's like, well, how is that going to happen? How are they going to make that happen? People have talked about them spraying nanotech. I mean, it could be in products, food products, because it's so incredibly microscopic that you can't possibly detect it, sort of thing. But we are facing a future where we're being further and further dehumanized. And it's like what the United Nations is trying to accomplish is to take control of every element of civilization. And namely, well, one of the most important things being the food, what we eat, and using the whole guise of global warming, climate change to say, well, we have to implement these solutions. We have to force, and then all the governments that are signing on to these United Nations charters are beholden to these agreements. And then global satellites being used to monitor and detect and all these things. I mean, these H1N1 type viruses, which could very well be, machinations, lab created or just hoaxes in general, that are being used to, and again, with the avian flu, the H1N1, you saw a lot of chicken farm, or what would you call them? People that have livestock, right? That like chicken coops and stuff like that, forced to kill all their birds basically to stop the spread. And this is the type of stuff that we face in the future, where the government can come in and basically slaughter your livestock, even if you're trying to live off the grid, because of some apparent outbreak that, and then what are you going to do, right? I mean, you're in these situations. So but the dehumanization of humanity, where it's like we're going to be so out of touch with what our food actually is, instead of having food that we've always traditionally had throughout our entire humanity, whether it be hunting or gathering or growing crops. And you could go through the history of agriculture and how much things have changed, obviously, with all the different crossbreeding and everything else that they've done over the years. But nonetheless, we are in a brave new world where, we have lab-based, plant-based meats that are completely synthetic. And
they just have to train us to feel that's normal, right?
Well, and they have to make it tasty. They have to.
Well, yeah, I hear it tastes pretty good, but don't smell it while it's cooking. Like that's a huge hurdle. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean, what, you're not supposed to smell it when you're cooking? I mean, that's
why you
think
gotta
about
get
it. That's what's the best thing about meat? I mean, aside from eating it, it's the smell of cooking it, right?
Yeah,
when
not
you cook
the Impossible Burger.
Yeah, that's it. But now these things stink to high heaven, but somehow they're going to trick you into making it. Oh yeah, it kind of tastes like chicken.
That's where we're going next. Down at the bottom of that page, where it's talking, you could start maybe again, technology can play a
Am I
role.
on the right page here?
Yeah,
Or-
106.
Yeah.
Where you
No,
were?
sorry. 106. I got to go back here.
Yeah. Oh, you went past.
106 here. Is this
Down
106? Okay.
toward the end, where you just
Here?
were a minute ago. Yeah. Sorry,
This one
I'm on
here?
the other window. Let me go. No, up. Page
Up.
before that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's going to spill on to this next page. So again, technology can play a role just down at the bottom of the paragraph.
Again, technology can play a role in improving nutritional quality by, for example, making new processing methods and products economically viable and available for consumers. However, dietary choices are also important. Meat consumption is the obvious case in point. In some parts of the world, people eat meat only a few times per year, often in connection with ceremonies. In others, they eat meat several times per day. Meat production, especially when animals are grain-fed, which requires growing crops for
Fed
feed.
wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, is particularly demanding in terms of environmental cost. And in many developing countries, a reduction in meat consumption would be accompanied by health benefits. Really?
Now, the source for that number 508,
Yeah.
I just sent that to you. And this one's funny because so it's reducing meat consumption in developed and transition countries to counter climate change and biodiversity loss, a review of influence factors. So I don't remember, the page is 1271, but I don't remember what it is in the little document there. But over and over and over again in this thing, they talk about cognitive dissonance, that's what they need to overcome with people.
Wow.
And yeah.
They're so concerned with the, I like that Israel pops up right there. They're so concerned with the mind control of the masses and public opinion, right?
Yeah.
They have to go to extraordinary means to convince people. This is why when we show with all the plant-based burgers that they're pushing, it's all celebrities that are the ones that,
yep,
get photographed and, oh, you're first to try it, over and over again. Because they think, well, monkey see, monkey do sort of thing. If we can get the celebrities to come out and endorse these types of things, then people will consume them. And then, yeah, that's as old as the hills in terms of celebrity sort of programming.
And they talk about that sort of stuff through here. And then on page 13, that's what it is. 13 in that document.
13. I have to.
There.
They're not giving me the option here, so I have to scroll. But it's not that bad.
Sorry, but yeah, lots of cognitive dissonance, lots of social and cultural norms having to.
What page is it in the book though? Because it doesn't.
Oh, you can't see.
Yeah.
Thing.
You have to give me
1271.
1271. Okay, we're right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the last paragraph.
Last paragraph here.
Yeah.
Therefore, cognitive dissonance may be lessened by promotion of new social norms, e.g., by encouraging people to move in widening social circles and that have fresh attitudes about food and personal integrity. This can be achieved by means of different strategies. One is to stress the role of vegan or vegetarian opinion leaders as role models for those who feel insecure about their decision to avoid meat and other animal products or feel under social pressures not to change their dietary habits. Wow. Many prominent role models are taking a lead. Actors, singers, TV personalities, politicians, and sports people such as Paul McCartney, who is probably the world's most famous vegetarian / animal rights abuse activist, Bill Clinton, and Mike Tyson, Ben Stiller, Michelle Pfeiffer, Demi Moore, Johnny Depp, not sure the tribe of most of these people, and Kate Winslet are constantly making their views on meat consumption publicly known. These role models could be a way to enable participants to feel pride and personal esteem doing the sustainably right thing, even when others around them are not doing the same thing. This could help to neutralize the powerful effect of social pressure exerted by meat eaters during meals.
Yeah. Another, wow. I want to go to another spot too, but up above here in that same page, there's the 3 columns. The second to, well, at the bottom of it, the second one to the last on the right column. And it's talking about how one of the ways that they can get past the barriers of people wanting to get away or eat
Are you talking
animals.
about the political and economic
Yeah.
factors?
Yeah, it says that they can increase the prices by like eliminating harmful subsidies, which subsidies are junk, and internalizing external costs and or imposing taxes on animal production and products. So they're not just going to take away the funding, make it all more expensive.
They can artificially sort of increase the price of meat.
Yeah.
And then it's passed on to consumers because they'll force meat corporations to raise the prices, and then that'll make.
And if they tax the little guy, the small farmer that's producing these things, because if their animals are going to a vet, then they've got those tags either in them or on them.
Yeah.
And so they'll know who, and they'll know who has to get taxed. And then,
So just for a second, the tags there are they like microchips as well? Like
yeah, they monitor they can tell when they're lactating, when they're ready to breed, when they're
really. Do you think maybe then with the pet sort of microchips that they might have that same type of information being?
Perhaps, I don't know. The drug companies have bought up these companies that do this, like Pfizer and.
We talked about it years ago where they were trying, and they're already trying to do this. Of course, they've talked about a lot about getting babies microchip.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like the microchip is kind of 1970-ish.
Yeah.
Maybe in 1960s where we're going. But again, it's not the same type of microchip like the RFID chip.
Yeah,
like
these are
highly. Yeah, they might be the size of a grain of rice or something, but they are
or a big necklace. They go both ways, big and little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I can't not say the part on page, let's see, 1273. So that's in just 2 pages from where you are.
Right there. Down
at the bottom, it says on the very last part here, it's talking about, for example, and I don't know if you want to read that.
Yeah, let's read it. For example, the promotion of new social and cultural norms by means of stressing the role of vegan and vegetarian opinion leaders as role models, as well as community. I think I just read this one.
You read part, or it's similar to what you just read, but it's really the end of it. It's talking toward the end. It says that
it bears repeating, so I'll read the whole thing again to emphasize this, so everyone knows. Look, I'm not against vegans and vegetarians and people that choose to live that lifestyle, but understand that probably you're living that lifestyle because you've been programmed into it. For example, the promotion of new social and cultural norms by means of stressing the role of vegan or vegetarian opinion leaders as role models, as well as community-based social marketing or emotional and symbolic messaging, addresses factors such as cognitive dissonance, all socio-cultural related factors, and perceived behavioral controlled alongside influences on the political and economic context.
Yeah. And so then it goes on and it talks about these different institutions that they've already started to do this. For instance, governments in countries such as China, where they're running a major where they ran a major campaign employing a well-known U.S. actor such as Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then if you look at the link I just sent you just now, Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Cameron, two people who were huge in pushing the game changers that's out there, they're working for China to push people to not want to eat meat.
They had
look at game changers different.
They had the guy that produced the film on Joe Rogan's show, and I called him out when I showed it, and I said, this guy, his qualifications is that he was like I don't know what he was like. He had a scuba diving license or something. And he produced this film and he was talking all this bull crap.
So this year's before the film came out. If you scroll down, you'll see those goobers.
Yeah, there they are.
Less meat, less heat, more life.
Wow.
But this is pre-Game Changers.
That's crazy.
Working for China. I mean, I think they're all on the same team. I think that all of these countries are absolutely working together. And but I thought that one was funny. So the
campaign tagline: less meat, less heat, more life.
Yay.
Will tell the climate benefits of lower meat consumption and feature PSAs on billboards and televisions across China. Here's Schwarzenegger, who has long been encouraging people to go part-time vegetarian for eco reasons, and Cameron, an outspoken vegan, are talking about it. Wow. Cameron, of course, producing all the Avatar movies, right, which are coming out one after another. And again, with Avatar, what is the theme? Have you seen the
I
movie
saw
Avatar?
Avatar. Yeah.
And it shows the horrible, industrial military
of
complex
beautiful.
takeover of the beautiful, with the giant tree of life symbolism, and they take down the giant tree to get to the unobtainium crystals, and the beautiful blue native peoples fight them, and all the animals, all the diverse animals bond together to fight the evil sort of white people. It's crazy. This is why, like, nothing anymore. We're past that era, folks. Like, your movies that you might have grown up with might have been a completely different era. I mean, there's always been a level of programming, but it's Disney now. Like, just like, Camille is saying about all these countries working together to accomplish the same goals. They have managed to convince enough countries around the world, or the people that are strategically positioned, i.e. shills that they've inserted, and plants like the mayor of Montreal, who's called Valerie Plant, by the way, to accomplish their objectives, strategically positioning people within politics to bring about this Hegelian dialectic here, in which they're transforming our world. I mean, that's what the sustainable development. You go to the United Nations website for Agenda 2030, and it says transforming our world. Like, this is the bigger picture, about what is really going on and why you're seeing all the plant-based burgers and the depopulation and the feminism and the LGBT and all that crap. Everything fits under the whole, Agenda 21 sort of umbrella. And
I'm almost out of time. I'm
Okay.
trying to look at what I have left to see what I should say. I know at the bottom of that page, it goes
quick.
On that same page, it's talking about how they did like a study, I think Finland, Nordic countries. Oh, wait, no, back on the UN document. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Confusing. Sorry. But yeah, they're talking about how they did some tests with school children, and that the boys said, no, there's some tie to masculinity with me.
You gotta get more estrogen.
Yeah, seriously. And on page 110, they talk about artificial meat.
Okay.
Where on here? I don't remember.
Nutrifish.
Yeah, Nutrifish. I went looking into Nutrifish a good bit.
Oh,
it's like a mom, and
nasty.
It's the first 1,000 days of life that they want to give children this extra nutrition, and so it's a mother and child program where they give like a complimentary food for the child, and they want them to eat the tiny little native fish in the area. But it's like, where are they farmed at this point? I don't know where they come from. Is it really fish? I don't know. But I stopped looking. Yeah,
You saw, I don't know if you saw the story I showed the other day where a bunch of Frankenfish there was a fire and they got into the river, and they're like, oh, they probably all died in the fire.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Like, yeah, that's sure, I believe it. It's like, oh my god, could you imagine like the regular salmon running into these monster salmons and being like, what the hell are these things?
Yeah.
It's so disturbing what's going on, folks. It's really crazy. Nutrifish, like NutraSweet, was it aspartame NutraSweet?
Or go to page 110, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm on 110, I think.
Oh, you're on 110.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
I'm
on the other screen again. Jeez, why do I keep doing that?
Yeah.
I can't read it on your screen, so I have to go over to my
screen. That's why I was talking Nutrifish, because I saw that.
Oh, yeah, sorry. That is Nutrifish. Yeah, 110. They're talking about how the artificial meat is kind of intensive. Let me go back over to mine. Yeah, there. So it's not necessarily going to be so great, because is it that sustainable of an approach? I got to go to my page. I can't read it on yours. It's too
I'll read
small.
it then.
Yeah.
However, a complete transformation of the food system, complete transformation, folks, are you confused? All right, a complete transformation. I don't know. You could look up the word complete, see what it means, and then you can look up transformation. But anyways, a complete transformation of the food system requires new knowledge and new technologies. Thus, research has an important role to play in transforming the global food system. Scientists are already developing artificial meat, either from plant protein or grown in a laboratory from animal tissue or tissues. Currently, culture of animal cells is very energy intensive, so it's unclear whether such an approach has the potential to contribute substantially to the sustainable development. Other technologies are farther along in development, showing considerable promise to increase yields without increasing land use. That is, various forms of hydroculture, multi-story greenhouses, vertical farming, and aquaculture. And again, we showed that with the Plandopolis, where the girl is like, I think it's great that they're forcing everyone not to drive cars because now we can use the parking lots, the parking plazas to grow our and that's what they're doing in the big cities as well by putting the greenhouses on the roofs and all that crap. Well, again, I'm not, like I do believe that we should take advantage of.
Where does the
cities.
nutrition come from? Like
Yeah.
that's I used to really like the idea of aquaculture and aquaponics and all that stuff, but I'm not at all on board with it anymore since
It's nuts
where
though.
would it come
It's
from?
almost like, it's almost like we live on Venus or something. And it's like we have to do all this stuff just to grow food when it's like, we got the sun and soil and animals.
Yeah, isn't that neat?
It's just like,
people
it
got
ain't
here this
broke.
long.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But they're like, we have to,
Seriously.
again, that's why I put complete transformation. I mean, it's like, this is no joke, folks. I mean, you wonder why. What about the old days when Burger King would release some, burger and McDonald's would make fun of it? Why don't they make fun of each other anymore? Why don't they? No, they're all doing the same thing because they're all on board with the same objectives. Every fast food outlet is pushing the lab grown meats and the plant based burgers and all that crap. The impossible burgers. It's a full on assault. It's a full on transformation of civilization. What's happening. Okay, so where we go next?
Sorry, I was looking on here and I was trying to pull up. I just sent you another link for the source for that, where they're talking about how it's very energy intensive. But I mean, we should keep in mind that they are able to do different things than this is. I think it said 2015, and it just told me I don't have the credentials to open it, so I don't know what it's going to tell you. I opened it before.
This is the anticipatory life cycle analysis in vitro biomass cultivation and cultured meat production in the United States.
And
wow.
as I showed in the I'm echoey. Sorry. As I showed in my Dear Vegans video, they're feeding these things with carbon dioxide now. Like they've got microbes that so it's handy in a few pages when they talk about the fossil fuels, because they come right out and say in the document that fossil fuels aren't going away. They're just phasing it to be they have to have capture and storage. Well, they feed the microbes. They want to remake everything in the world with biotechnology, and they can feed their microbes the CO2, that there's going to be no doubt some way that they make out with the companies that capture their carbon. And then there will be special deals. Oh, good, you're buying carbon. Oh, and everybody it'll work out great. But they were using corn in this thing that they're talking that you have on your screen. They were doing corn, but they can do that with air now, so it probably won't be such a problem. And I have right next in my thing, I'm pretty sure it came from that study. I have you look at it, but I can't even open that document anymore. It says that biotechnological production processes like fermentation and microbial enzymatic transformation, they exist, and they're rapidly emerging for commercial production of vitamins and related compounds. And I thought this was interesting because it's saying that because unique inventories were not available for each individual compound, those that utilize a fermentation production process were modeled as an average of the fermented amino acid lysine and threonine. But anyway, these include, so these are things that are already produced by fermentation biotechnology: biotin, riboflavin, vitamin B12, folic
Mhm.
acid, recombinant human insulin, putrescine, and sodium pyruvate. I mean, you see folic acid and riboflavin and B12 and all kinds of things. And they're
Mhm.
making them with biotech. Not saying all of it is, but they are. So
Wow. It's crazy.
there's more, like, I don't know what page. Let me look. What page they go into stuff that's missing beyond the goals. Let me look for the page. Is page 153. Beyond the goals, I mean, who'd have thought, how we said before, the having animals out in the pasture is actually good. Well, now they're looking at that, pastoralism. They're looking
Yep.
at that, and these are things that are missing. And at the bottom of the list there is human genome editing and transhumanism. These are things that could pose a threat, but they did democratize CRISPR and send it everywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
But it could cause a threat.
Why? And then you're like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
and now CRISPR, of course, is going to be a huge. Again, with the CRISPR folks, it's just on this is just dealing with the human level because they can use this CRISPR gene editing, advancements on anything technically, right? But they're going to the future humans at a bare minimum, if you just take away the cloning and the whatchamacallit, transhumanism and all that, the future humans are going to be, you're going to be able to design your babies, basically. This is already happening. And they're saying within 2 years, in fact, I show this in the UK, there's ministers saying that we have to implement CRISPR editing, gene editing sort of to all babies, basically, of course, to eliminate diseases and stuff like this. Right. So the governments are already going to be proactively trying to push that we create these somewhat synthetic human beings in the future. It's just nuts where it's all going. Like it's happening so quickly too. It's hard to really, keep abreast with it, let alone try to chart out where it's all going to end up.
So they talk about, those are the things they forgot. Those are the things they left out, like culture, people's spiritual values, that these are things they need to consider now. I have to send us now to page 171 because I don't want to forget the Nagoya Protocol, which I like the name Nagoya, but it's from a Japanese city, I guess. If you see that there, like fifth chunk down on the left. I've got this thing printed out. The Nagoya Protocol is the access to genetic resources and the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from their utilization to the Convention on Biological Diversity. So this thing is talking about how all of the stuff like I had mentioned in the Please Stop the Ride to the Biotech Food Takeover, how
Right.
they have been cataloging and getting the code for all the life on the planet. Well, this is how they can use it, and how the nations, that like all the African countries where they have all this diversity and rich plant life and everything, they're going to be able to make out on that because they've got this diversity to offer, and that it's those resources are held and owned by the indigenous and local communities. I should send you the link to this thing, shouldn't I? I'm just telling you it and you can't even see it.
No, it's okay. Yeah, you
Okay.
can if you want. I know you're pressed for time, so I didn't want
Sorry.
to.
Well,
You're doing great. Don't worry.
It's talking about the use of the terms, because it's important to always get the terms that you're talking about because we mean different things than they do. But their terms are saying the utilization of genetic resources. Like, what does that say to people? Well, that is meaning to conduct research and development on the genetic and or biochemical composition of genetic resources, including through the application of biotechnology as defined in the next thing, which is biotechnology as defined in Article 2 of the Convention, means any technological application that uses biological systems, living organisms, or derivatives thereof to make or modify products or processes for specific use. So, yeah, it's basically this big long thing all about how they own, the indigenous groups own the actual plants. Then they've all signed up to have everything scanned and be able to use in their Tinker Toy building of everything. But they also are harvesting the knowledge from these indigenous groups where they're saying like, how did you use this plant, and that they'll be able to be rewarded
Yeah, of
because they
course.
participated in
Yeah,
that.
exactly. They're
Yeah.
giving them a carrot.
Yeah. And then
Nuts. Go ahead.
the only other thing is on the next page, 172, it's like a throwback to that thing where they're going to use the movie stars and everything. A19, if you want to read that.
Yeah,
little chunk.
A19, the four levers of change: governance, economy, and finance, individual and collective action, and the science and technology should be coherently deployed and combined to bring about transformational change. All actors should strive for coordinated efforts and prioritize policy coherence and consistency across sectors. And then the four levers are powerful agents of change that can impact the world for better or for worse. The 2030 agenda must therefore be used by all stakeholders as a guidance and as a normative reference to the deployment of these levers and a criterion for evaluating their performance.
So the reason why everything looks like it's happening all at the same time is because it's coordinated. It's a coordinated attack, of course.
It's all been planned. Plandopolis. It's all been planned for a long time, folks. You can go back to Club of Rome. You can go back probably League of Nations to really get to where this master plan sort of first emanated. Again, reiterating that the banksters have always been obsessed with controlling the world's population. It's always been an obsession of them. And I think that climate change is the ace in the hole that they're going to use to take control of everything, to transform every element and to take control. Again, they guise it up as we're going to save the world, right? And this is why people buy into it. But what we're seeing is a complete transformation of every element of our civilization, where we are going to have a centralized globalist government that is going to be monitoring, watching everything you do and controlling every element, from food to education to transportation to water to everything, life on land, life below the water, everything that they say. They want to control everything. And this is where it's going. So,
and they're going to make you excited about it.
Yeah, it's just a full-on programming. So all your actors are shilling for the New World Order. I mean, they're only there because they make the deal, right? So they make the deal. They get the fame, they get the fortune and the girls and the drugs and whatever else, because they're gonna do what the New World Order ask them to do, sort of thing. And that's why the celebrities are the major sort of instruments of change, along with the governments and all that. But you could say Greta being a great example, Arnold Schwarzenegger, James Cameron, all the ones they mentioned, Michelle Pfeiffer, all these characters that they all have their own little thing. It's like Paul McCartney is the vegan and he hates the seal hunts and whatever else, right? So he does that work. You've got the ones that push the PETA, animal cruelty, for instance, which we're all against, I think, unless you're a psycho. You don't want to see animals being harmed, but it's very disingenuous the way they do it.
Same companies that did that are now investing heavily in this new thing. That's the thing that blows my mind with these people that could support this, that are because
it's
it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, but it does from their point of view, because they know that this is the ultimate form of control, and that they're going to be at they're going to be above everyone else, and they're going to be able to watch everything that we do. They are implementing a global surveillance grid, which none of us will be able to escape, and people will be born into. And again, like I said, with the CRISPR babies, like they are actually trying to implement this. They are actually trying to, all under the guise of we need to eliminate childhood illness and stuff like that by going in and gene editing babies, right, that are being born. And they're trying to pass this in legislation, and then it's affecting every element. And this is dehumanization, in my opinion. The one of the worst elements of all of this is that we are losing touch with what we are as human beings. We're getting so far away from what our food should actually be, and what our lives could actually be, and we're being conditioned into living in these mega cities, having being plugged into the matrix 24/7, which will, when the brain chips are implemented, which is already full underway, and the micro and the nanotech and all that is implemented, we're going to have no sovereignty whatsoever. We're not even going to have freedom of thought. We're going to be all of a group mind, a hive mindset. And this is the whole programming, the precursor to actually the brain chip sort of Borgish hive mind is already here. It's all around you. You see it manifest in Extinction Rebellions, right? For just one example, or feminist rallies and stuff like that. It just goes to show you how. And then again, vegan movements. A lot
Tomorrow
of good.
starts Veganuary again.
Oh, you're kidding me?
No, Veganuary. Even McDonald's is doing specials.
What? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
they did this
nuts.
last year too. Yeah. And
Nuts.
it's going to be a lot of programming coming out for that. But maybe people can hit, like, depending on which way people lean politically. Oh yeah, you like the Game Changers? That comes from China.
Yeah.
China funded. And when people are looking at that, I mean, maybe it doesn't matter to everybody, but I saw on the cast list, I didn't watch the movie, but that Caldwell Esselstyn, the guy that is in Forks Over Knives, his son's in this one too. He is Skull and Bones. His father-in-law is Skull and Bones. His brother is Skull and Bones. These people, it's like, eat what they tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, you see, and again, what do they hate the most? They hate people. They hate preppers. They hate people that pull themselves off the grid. They hate homeschooling, right? They hate anybody that's able to establish any sort of sovereignty on their own. This is what they want to wipe out. And I've shown this for so many years. All the stories that go out that try to paint people that get off the grid as dangerous and abusive, and homeschooling as being really bad. And then of course you see with the vaccinations, right? Like they want to make vaccinations mandatory. This is all happening. I mean, it's they're day after day after day, they're pushing all kinds of fear porn dealing with vaccinations and outbreaks, trying to condition. And then there's lots of legislation that's to follow, which is again and again an encroachment on our freedoms and forcing us to comply. We're going to live in a world where we'll have no say on anything, basically, in the future. And most of humanity is going to be so hive mind programmed that they'll cheer it on.
And it's so convenient.
Yeah, they'll want the diversity, and they'll want, because their weakness, which is what is being encoded and programmed into every. People are being made into marshmallows. I talk about this all the time. They're making people into weak, sobby, narcissistic, sexually confused, degenerate sort of bags of goo, basically. And then naturally, if you're in that state, you're going to want government to protect you from everything. You're going to demand a plan. You're going to demand, more, government providing for you. And this is the antithesis of freedom, of course. The government is a corporatocracy. This is the New World Order. All these people, and like Camille pointed out, I mean, you're talking Skull and Bones, right? I mean, again and again and again, like Al Gore. I mean, when you talk about the whole environmental movement, the climate change whole thing, Al Gore would be the biggest name, period. Maybe after Greta now. But, I mean, he is Skull and Bones. Right? I mean, yep. this and of course he was Skull and Bones, and his family made their fortune off the tobacco industry. These are not good people, folks, and they're anything but honest, and their intentions are just to consolidate and grow their power and to transform humanity into the type of servitude and the type of mind-controlled slaves that they want, that's going to keep them from ever being exposed what they're really up to. So this is, I mean, the whole, sustainable development thing all sounds nice on the surface, and you would think, well, if you buy into, the planet has runaway greenhouse gas effect, we're going to destroy the planet. We only have 10 years now, because it's 2020 tonight, right? 10 years left till the planet's dead. I mean, it's the biggest load of horse manure ever. They told us that cities would be, all these coastal cities would be flooding years back, and it hasn't happened at all, right? So we are being totally misled, and we're being emotionally manipulated. And just like Camille did an excellent job here pointing out how all the celebrities, now they're actually saying in their official documents that, we're going to use all the celebrities to brainwash all the people into being vegans and, you know, championing this stuff. So it's a full-on assault, and it's all around you. This is the bigger picture of everything that's going on, really. It all kind of fits under the umbrella of Agenda 21, and it's scary because it's every element, what we eat, what we drink, our education, you know, how we live our lives, you know, everything falls under this. So it really is crazy. I bet now you probably have to go, right, Camille?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to thank you so much for coming on and doing an amazing job again, and encourage everyone to follow the link in the description to go to Please Stop the Ride, which is Camille's channel, and
I just
subscribe
left
her.
a comment in the chat.
And yeah, she's right there. Happy New Year. Go and sub her and check out her work. I mean, she's doing tremendous work.
Oh yeah, I finally got my website out,
Yes.
which is more for my business cards because it's easier to find me instead of on YouTube. But it's just pleasestoptheride.com. Please feel free to use anything, everything. Take it, put it on your own things. Please tell people, because that's what we have to do. It's a numbers thing, definitely.
Absolutely. So thank you all so much for tuning into the show today. Huge thanks to Camille. Amazing job.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll be back. Maybe in a couple of weeks we'll do a follow-up, or we're doing these shows regularly. So I really enjoy them. And yeah, thank you to all the great people in the audience that watch this. Hopefully can you share these? I mean, this is what we would hope that you would do. Is it should be clean for Facebook and all that. I mean, it's not like we're, you know, screaming bloody murder and stuff. We're just showing what they're putting in their documents. So they can't.
Their propaganda. Yeah,
their propaganda. So if you can, please share this on social media. Get the word out. And yeah, we'll see you guys all in the next one. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful, happy New Year, by the way, to everyone. I hope you have a wonderful 2020. All right.